All right, everyone. A warm welcome to you all. My name is Adiba Chiamonini, and I'm the Executive Director of Silicon Vikings. We're very excited today to hear more about how you actually sell to the absolute largest buyer in the world, the U.S. federal government. So a little bit shortly about Silicon Vikings. Silicon Vikings is a business networking organization that connects the Nordic region, the Nordic countries of Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, and Estonia, and their innovation and startup ecosystem to Silicon Valley. We have our headquarters in Silicon Valley, where we are right now, and we also have chapters in the Nordic countries. Silicon Vikings mainly does three things. We work with creating and organizing events like these, usually off the web, but this is also a very good format for it. We do that for different kind of tech sectors: cloud and social media, life science, clean tech, entrepreneurship and learning, and mobile and gaming. We're also organizing a lot of different promotion activities and work a lot to market and promote Nordic great innovations and startups. And we also do some different projects that connect the regions. I would like to thank Winvale for actually taking their time and doing this for us together with us and to organize these kind of webinars. This is a very interesting topic, and I believe that all of you that are joining us today want to learn more about it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to an old friend and colleague, Gunilla Gerardo, and she'll tell you more about this session and what we're going to hear about today. So everyone, enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Adiba. It's really great to work with you again, and I'm equally excited about what Silicon Vikings and Winvale can do together. I also want to welcome all of our participants to this webinar. We have an impressive group of international companies participating today. Some of you have offices in the U.S., others don't. But there are participants dialing into this call from 9 different countries and 11 different states. But what brings us together today is that you all have an interest in offering your products and solutions to the U.S. government. Before I introduce our speakers for today, just a couple of words about me. For those of you who know me from the past, you know that 10 of my 19 years here in the U.S. were spent as president for the Swedish-American Chambers of Commerce, where I did a lot of trade missions and business matchmaking. I love helping companies grow, and when I see an opportunity to introduce good companies to market opportunities, I simply have to facilitate the necessary introductions. I have recently joined Winvale, but I have known David and his team for many years, and have always been impressed with the way that David and his 2 partners have built their company. The combination of their industry expertise and the way that they have leveraged themselves in the marketplace are certainly keys to their success. But what's most important to me when I decided to come on board was their great track record of helping companies succeed in this market. Over the past 10 years, Winvale has helped many companies gain access to markets, resulting in more than $21.4 billion in sales for their clients. So for me, in my role here at Winvale, it's very important that I'm able to continue to help companies grow and succeed. And to be honest, during my 19 years here, I have more or less just ignored the government market because we as foreigners, and now I'm generalizing, think that it's too complicated and costly to do business with them. The fact is that if you have a product or service that the government needs, they will want to purchase it from you. That's part of what we will talk about today. So without further ado, let me introduce David, Sandy, and Patrick Dalton to you. David is one of Winvale's managing partners, responsible for the firm's overall commercial strategy and sales. In this role, he leads a team of highly experienced business development and sales professionals in recruiting new clients and partners. In addition to David and his team, including myself, he's responsible for client education and collaboration with a strong emphasis on customer service and transparency. Patrick Dalton is our government development lead, responsible for is really instrumental in developing relationships on behalf of Winvale's clients and assuring that their federal government efforts are clearly defined and executable. In addition, Patrick and his team are responsible for market research, opportunity identification. Their work includes both large and small businesses spanning a multitude of industries. So David, with all of this, the webinar is all yours.
Thank you, Adiba. Thank you, Gunilla. Välkommen. We're excited to present this information today. Our agenda includes understanding the government market, legal compliance, identifying government needs, accessing contract vehicles and teaming partners, marketing and business development basics, and we've left some time for questions at the end. With that said, let's begin. In this first section, we'll give you an overview of the U.S. government market and the requirements an international company needs to meet in order to compete for business. The U.S. government market is one of the most stable and dependable markets. However, many companies don't understand the potential. This market has longer buying cycles and there are a lot of regulations, but the profit margins can be good and there's tremendous amounts of money spent every year. It's expected that in fiscal year 2014, the total spend will reach $3.8 trillion. You should, however, keep in mind that $3.8 trillion is the operating budget for the entire government, and not all of it is available for contracting. In 2012, it was $3.5 trillion. Being a small business in the U.S. government is an advantage, as government and large prime contractors are expected to meet small business goals. Having any of these designations will allow you to team with other companies and have a more complete solution. In 2012, $376 billion went to small businesses. As an international company, it's important to consider the following when planning to do business with the U.S. government, including ensuring that ownership of your company cannot be of a foreign government. All financial documents, such as your balance sheet, profit and loss statements, invoices, and contracts, need to be converted to U.S. dollars. You also must be capable of delivering your goods and services to the continental United States. You also must establish your own DUNS number. DUNS stands for Data Universal Numbering System, which is a 9-digit number that indicates your business's physical location and credit worthiness. It's free to establish and takes approximately 5 days to receive. You should also register with SAM at sam.gov. SAM stands for System for Award Management and is used by the federal government in order to facilitate their payments. Finally, you should consider having a U.S. office. Although it's not required, it is a major plus since you'll be closer to your customers and better equipped to address their needs. Patrick will now discuss the upcoming federal government budget.
Here is the budget request for fiscal year 2014. The federal fiscal year starts from October 1st and runs through September 30th. And they can only spend money when funds are authorized and appropriated. This is also the same for most state and local governments, although their fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. You can see that the budget is broken down by federal agencies and department, and we've inserted an orange column to the right that shows the percent change indicating which federal buyers are getting more or less. And you can also see that the Defense Department gets almost 50% of the budget. The first column you see, Fiscal Year 2014 Proposal, that is the number requested by each federal agency from Congress for the 2014 budget. Fiscal 2012 Enacted is the approved congressional budget for each federal agency. And again, the orange column shows you the percent difference between the 2012 enacted and the 2014 proposal. HHS stands for Health and Human Services, DHS for the Department of Homeland Security, and HUD is the Housing and Urban Development. This is the last budget slide, and all of these billions of dollars don't tell you much other than demonstrating a need for a well-articulated plan and market approach. We often develop these documents to ensure companies optimize their opportunities. We all know in business that you can't be everything to everybody, so new contractors need to be smart and know who they are selling to and how best to reach the buyer. The columns on this page are the same as the previous slide. However, EPA stands for Environmental Protection Agency, NASA stands for our space agency, NSF is the National Science Foundation, SBA is the Small Business Administration, and SSA is the Social Security Administration. There are 3 ways to sell to the U.S. government, including sell direct, sell with, and sell through. Keep in mind that when selling into the government, you will have more hurdles and a longer sales cycle to deal with, but the competition is fair. Sell direct. Sell direct is when you contract directly with a government agency. This requires that you build a relationship with the key decision makers for the solutions that you wish to sell. Not all decisions are made by the Washington, D.C. headquarters. Some are made by regional or local offices. For example, the Veterans Affairs Hospital has the authorization to make a lot of purchasing decisions with local leadership. Sell-through. Sell-through will allow your company to act as a subcontractor and utilize an existing relationship held by a prime contractor. The prime contractor allows you to sell through their existing contract. This is a great avenue to build experience and introduce your company to the government as a new vendor. Before you introduce yourself to a prime contractor, you need to understand the contract you are discussing. Some of the key information to know is the contract number, period of performance, value, and completed task orders. Sell with. Sell with is when 2 or more contractors come together to meet a particular need. This is considered teaming. Teaming allows for multiple businesses to come together and compete for larger, more complex contracts. When considering a teaming partner, it is important to have an understanding of all their capabilities and experience. This will allow for a cohesive response to the government.
Our second section is legal compliance. A responsible government contractor. The Federal Acquisition Regulation System, or FAR, F-A-R as it's often referred to, consists to be determined a responsible contractor, one must A, have adequate financial resources to perform the contract or the ability to obtain them, B, be able to comply with the delivery of performance schedule, taking into consideration all existing business commitments. C, have a satisfactory performance record. D, have a satisfactory record of integrity and business ethics. E, have the necessary organization, experience, accounting, and operational controls and technical skills or the ability to obtain them. F, have the necessary production, construction, and technical equipment and facilities or the ability to obtain them. And G, be otherwise qualified and eligible to receive an award under applicable laws and regulations. The U.S. Trade Agreements Act is intended to foster fair and open international trade. TAA, as it's often referred to, requires that products must be produced or have undergone substantial transformation within the United States or a designated country. The People's Republic of China and some other major players in manufacturing are notably absent from the list of designated countries, which makes supplying TAA-compliant equipment more difficult. When does TAA apply? Compliance to TAA is often built into GSA schedules, other contracts, and Department of Defense contracts. In accordance with TAA, only U.S.-made or designated country end products shall be offered and sold under GSA Schedule contracts. That means all products offered under these agreements must be TAA compliant. Does TAA apply if I'm not a contractor? If you don't have a GSA Schedule contract but sell to government contractors, you'll increasingly find that they won't buy products that are not TAA compliant. With TAA compliance issues coming to the forefront of contractors' minds, you'll need to understand TAA and be able to certify that your products are compliant. How do I know whether a product is TAA compliant? Determining TAA compliance isn't as simple as looking at a made-in stamp. Complex issues of substantial transformation during the manufacturing process can affect whether a product is compliant. It may not be practical or even possible for contractors to go through every product they sell to determine compliance. It is more cost-effective and reliable to source products directly from manufacturers that possess the detailed product knowledge and supply chain control required to verify TAA compliance. If you supply products to the government or government contractors, you need to make sure that your products are TAA compliant. Penalties for non-compliance are prohibitively expensive. The best way to ensure compliance is to source products made by reputable manufacturers capable of being certified. Small business rules. Some awards on GSA contracts are set aside or reserved for U.S. small businesses. This means that only a U.S. small business that have certified their size can receive the award. The Small Business Administration typically defines a U.S. small business by the number of employees over the past 12 months or its average annual revenue over the past 3 years. Additionally, a U.S. small business must be organized for profit and have a place of business in the U.S., make a significant contribution to the U.S. economy through payment of taxes or use of American products, materials, or labor, be independently owned and operated, and not be dominant in its field on a national basis. There are, of course, many opportunities for foreign companies to participate in small business awards if structured correctly. Now we'll talk about how to best identify the needs of the government.
Identifying government needs. First place to look is at the annual procurement forecast. The annual procurement forecast is a list of current fiscal year procurement opportunities by quarter by specific agency. You will find a contact, and you will also find a brief description of the project they're looking for, and also you might find some funding, whether they're allocating $30 million or whether they're allocating $30,000. The next is acquisition.gov. Acquisition.gov has links to all government agencies' procurement websites and links to all the annual procurement forecast. Next is FBO, or FedBizOps. FedBizOps is a public bid board that all government agencies use to post opportunities when they need to put them out for bid. It is a requirement that all opportunities over $25,000 must be posted on FBO.gov. You also have the ability to set up automatic searches to ping your email every day of new opportunities or when changes have been made to a particular opportunity you are watching. The next two, usaspending.gov and fpds.gov, are very similar and both show you historical spend data. When looking for historical contract information, doing some competitor analysis, or looking at a specific agency, You can use these two websites to find how much money they've spent with a particular competitor or how much money they've spent on a particular contract in order to make the assessment if you guys want to go after it. The last is talk and meet with decision makers. The agencies will have small business vendor sessions, industry days, trade shows, events, and even partner with outside organizations to host a bunch of types of speaking and information events. Attending these events is a great way to introduce yourself to the decision makers and listen to them speak about current issues their agency is facing. This will allow you to position your pitch and build a relationship within the agency. I will now hand it off to David, who will discuss how to access different government contract vehicles and teaming partners.
The government has a number of ways to purchase goods and services. Some are done through the open market, while others are purchased through a variety of government procurement vehicles. These include, but are not limited to, the General Services Administration Schedule Contract, or GSA Schedule Contract. This is the most widely used and accepted federal contract, as every federal agency and some state and local government agencies buy directly from it. This is what we refer to as a GSA contract. NASA SOUP is a more agency-specific contract for IT products and services. DHS also has an agency-specific contract called Eagle II, as does Navy with its Seaport E contract. For many companies, your starting point should be the GSA Schedule contract. In regards to teaming, Patrick stated earlier that an effective way to sell to the government is to sell with. Again, this is when two or more contractors come together to meet a particular need. If you're looking to identify an existing contractor or contractors that you can team with, you should look at GSA Library of Contractors, which is listed at the bottom of the slide. There's a link there.
Now we will discuss marketing and business development basics. We all know the first rule in business is to know your customer, and this is especially true in the government market. The government knows it's different, and it wants to be treated different than a normal commercial account. That's why many companies will make sure their marketing documents and their website have a focus on the government, because they know government buyers use search engines just like everyone else. The next point is to make sure you understand the agency's mission. On our budget screen earlier, we saw about 22 agencies and departments, but actually there are approximately 456 agencies or customers. A successful contractor never forgets the mission of the agencies they're selling to and how their solution will support that mission. That last part is critical. The last point discusses the importance of technology and how the government views it as an investment and a way to be more efficient. I will now hand it back to David to discuss the GSA schedule.
What is a GSA schedule? The GSA Multiple Award Schedule Program, or GSA Schedule Contract, allows commercial companies to establish a government contract with all federal government agencies. In return, your company must be willing to pre-negotiate or discount its commercial pricing for its products and/or services. This is where we spend most of our time to ensure our clients receive the most favorable contract possible. GSA schedules are for 20 years. They do not have sales or order limitations. As stated before, one of the most widely used government contracts currently available is the GSA Schedule Contract. There are 39 different GSA Schedule contracts encompassing everything from information technology to furniture, social media services, management consulting, building supplies, sporting goods, and more. Why use a GSA schedule? Again, all government agencies are familiar with it, and it's the fastest, most effective way to gain access to the market. In many instances, it's a requirement. In 2012, GSA Schedule sales represented more than $37 billion. Currently, there are 22,000 contractors holding GSA schedules, with the majority of them being small businesses. It's also a much faster way to do business with the government and avoid long buying cycles. Many agencies will ask you for your GSA schedule when you approach them. In this slide, we show the top GSA schedule contracts based on fiscal year 2012 sales. Information Technology, Schedule 70, which is products and services, accounted for $15 billion. Management Consulting and Training, 874, accounted for $4.8 billion. Engineering Services, 871, accounted for $2.8 billion. Law Enforcement and First Responder Equipment, or Schedule 84, accounted for $2.4 billion. Financial Services accounted for $1.5 billion, or Schedule 520. Furniture, Schedule 71, accounted for $1.2 billion, and Logistics Services, 874, Roman numeral 5, accounted for $1.1 billion. When pursuing a GSA schedule, you have two options to consider, including acquiring your own or using an existing contract from another company. When pursuing your own, it usually takes about 5 to 6 months to get on the contract. In some situations, it can be much faster. With your own GSA schedule, you will gain access to the government requests for purchases. You will also not have to share any percentage of your sales with any third parties. Winvale has helped more than 1,000 companies acquire their GSA schedules, encompassing nearly all 39 contracts. The second option, which is to use an existing GSA schedule contract or another company's GSA schedule contract, is beneficial if you're a manufacturer and you're selling products directly to the government. If you want to consider this option, you should go to GSA's Library of Contractors, which was listed on a previous slide, and identify similar or complementary companies. You will need to approach them, asking them to consider adding your products to their GSA schedule contract. Winvale currently has 3 GSA schedules, including Information Technology, Scientific Supplies, and one other for first responder equipment. I will now hand it off to Gunilla.
Thank you, David, and thank you all for attending this presentation. We would now like to address any of your questions. We have received a few beforehand and during our presentation, so let's try to answer some of them. Question 1, have you worked with any foreign companies? David.
Yes, we've worked with companies in Scandinavia, Finland, Sweden, and in Europe, Germany, Spain, and several others. The company's industries have included environmental services, software, furniture, building materials, medical equipment, and a host of others.
I have another question here. I've heard that it takes at least a year to get a GSA contract. Is that true?
No, not entirely. You'll need to plan for a little time to register with the different government databases and additional time for completing your GSA application. On average, we see the entire process take about 5 months. Of course, we've been through it a few times.
Here's the third question. In your opinion, would you recommend having a U.S. office?
It's a great question. I would recommend looking at it carefully when you're starting out. I think you can get away with being based elsewhere, but as your opportunities in your prospective business develops, you can travel back and forth with the expectation of establishing a U.S. office once things mature. I'd plan for probably about 6 months before doing so.
Okay, next question. What are the hot areas that the government is most interested in?
The real hot areas at this moment within the government are technology. Frankly, anything information technology, both products, services. There's a real move towards the cloud, a real emphasis on software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure. They've really taken an approach to getting out of the business of hosting their own applications and migrating over to utilizing more commercially oriented service providers. So data centers have been growing quite exponentially. The security market's also very hot, obviously technology-based security and, of course, physical security. The alternative energy market is also very active, solar, renewables, things along those lines. And then probably the other area of greatest importance would be healthcare technology. There's a real move to streamline that and allow it to be more functional for our veterans as well as others. The final area I would just emphasize would be mobility. There's a real move towards using mobile devices to interact with various constituents and make sure communications are broadcast at every level.
Okay, and what about if a product is produced in Sweden but has some components from China that are made there but owned by the company? Will that pass TAA?
That's a great question. The answer isn't as obvious, but what we would look at is what proportion or percentage of the end product, the finished product that gets to the hands of the customer, is manufactured in China and then manufactured within a trade agreements or a designated country. We could also look at dollar amount and other things to make that determination.
And here's a simple question I think even I can answer, that is if we will provide these slides after the presentation. And yes, we will. You will all receive an email, not today but tomorrow, where you can go and look at the presentation and download. Okay, that's about all the questions that we have time for. I know there are some other questions. We will make sure to get in touch with you all afterwards. I know Adiba had a couple of concluding remarks, so I'll give the floor to her.
Thank you so much, Gunilla, David, Patrick, and Heather, that I know is there. This was a very, very interesting presentation and also very easy to understand considering it's a complex topic. And I'm happy that organizations like yourself are out there to help these companies in succeeding with their government sales. I'm sure we will have several companies contacting you after this. So everyone that's online now, please use the survey that will show up right after you end your webinar, and give us some input of what you thought of this this way of giving you a presentation about these topics, and also some input about future topics you'd like to hear more about when it comes to government sales. You will also, as Gunilla mentioned, receive a link to the PowerPoint presentation, so you can read more about it, and of course contact Winvale when you have more questions as well. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope Winvale that we will organize these events with you going forward. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great day.